Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Dollars and Nonsense. Today, I interview my good friend and brother and colleague, Shane Tiffany, over at Tiffany Cattle Company. And I'm just really looking forward to the interview. And so let's just, like Ray would say, let's dial up God's phone number, Jeremiah 33:3. Call unto me, and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and mighty things that you did not know. Welcome to Dollars and Nonsense. Shane, how's it going?
Really well. Busy time of year in the agriculture space, but we're getting through it. Harvest is good. God's blessed us with some rain, and it's good.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you making some time for the podcast during this time of year. I know this podcast is going to air later in the year, but today is the 5th of September, 2024. So yeah, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Shane and I met years ago on a putting green at a golf course. Isn't that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And it was a divine appointment. And I had been learning about infinite banking for a couple, 2 or 3 years already, and I'd been working really closely with Ray Petit, who we've re-aired a bunch of his podcasts on the episode and what he meant to living wealth. But tell me what attracted you to infinite banking right from the beginning? What did you see, and then how did that play out for you?
Yeah. So my wife Morgan and my story are, we came from middle class families and had the opportunity to go into business for ourselves, and quickly became very entrepreneurial in spirit, and really kind of just grew up with this myth that we were always going to live paycheck to paycheck and that it was going to be a struggle our whole lives. But as God began to bless us and our income started outpacing our expenses, what really kept me up at night and what I wasn't happy with was not having what I felt like was a really good plan. I tend to be a planner and very detail oriented person, and not having a role for every dollar that exceeded our expenses was what really concerned me. And so wasn't big on the market. Just had a mentor early in my career that just said, I don't understand taking your hard-earned money and entrusting it to someone that you don't know to invest in things that you don't understand. And so for lack of a plan, we were buying ground and other businesses and maintaining control of our finances that way. But when I discovered, infinite banking, when you introduced me to that concept, I just quickly embraced it because it was something that I could, maintain control of the blessings that God had bestowed upon me, put it into a vehicle to where it continued to work for me while I still had access to do the other things that I wanted to do with it, largely, entrepreneur in context. So it was just a perfect fit for us.
Yeah. And you got started in, I think it was 2020 was when you got started.
That's correct.
With
Right.
infinite
Exactly.
banking.
So I don't remember the
remember
exact day. It might have been, I think it was the fall of 2020. So COVID was going on and it was a crazy time and markets were all over the place. And once again, it was just really God's timing and felt like it was the appropriate thing to do for us, for sure.
Right. I remember the day that we met. I had one copy of this book in my car, Becoming
Right.
Your Own Banker. And I remember you took the book and you went home, and I remember you texted me at like 9 or 10 o'clock that night, and you're like, I read the book. I want to start.
Yep.
It was so quick. It was just, it was like it was an answer to prayer, because you had a dream of building a family bank for a while, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, being in business and running a large commercial ag business and just handling large amounts of money, and just quickly understood that it was about the management of those things and how that could add up to just dramatically different trajectories depending on how well you managed it. That dream of owning a bank personally was always something that I thought that would be
Yeah.
great to do someday. And man, when you introduced me to this concept, it just like a light bulb went off, and something that really excited me right away.
Hmm. I want to go back to where you said not having a role for every access dollar. I really loved that, because something that Nelson Nash would say is, and this is one of the reasons why infinite banking was such a good fit for you, was because having a dollar that you didn't have a job for that dollar bothered you. And Ray would say we've been conditioned by institutions to store money, but they don't store money, they move money. They have jobs for every dollar. And Nelson would say, I want you to think of every dollar as inventory. Every dollar that you have is inventory in your business, and it should always be doing something. You should have a plan and an assignment for every dollar. And I think that is something that is exact. I've seen you. It's been a blessing, actually. It's been a huge blessing to watch you think about that way about money. Okay, what am I going to do with this now? What's my plan for this dollar for the next 6 months or 10 months or a year or maybe even longer, depending on the time period? But every dollar being inventory is a very deep idea.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, I quickly embraced when I read Nelson's book. I don't remember exactly which, syndrome or which, behavior he calls it. But look, I quickly understood in my own personal life that money that I didn't have a plan for, I would spend it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to fall into that. You don't have an earning problem, you've got a spending problem. And so,
Mm-hmm.
just having money sitting in the bank with no clear role, Morgan and I knew that over time we'd find some frivolous thing to spend that on. And so we were, the parable of the talents has been something that really we've studied hard and that has been impactful in our life. Look, I
Yeah.
didn't want to be that unfaithful servant that took what God entrusted me with and just, bury it in the ground. I have a
Mm-hmm.
pretty strong awareness that any dollar that I quote unquote earn that God has entrusted me with, I need to be responsible and accountable and make sure that it's, doing something for the kingdom.
Yeah, it is really it's also been that's huge. Chris Valentin wrote a really great book called Poverty, Riches, and Wealth, comparing, and a central part of that book is comparing the parable of the talents to the parable of the minas.
Great.
And I've learned that when Jesus does something twice, or
You better pay attention.
yeah, it's so he feeds a multitude twice.
Mm-hmm.
And there was different numbers in the two multitudes. Bill Johnson has an explanation of that, and if you look at that, there's a real reason for that. But he tells the parable of the talents in two different ways. One is talking about people at work, and one is talking about money at work, which is Nelson says there's only two things that make money: people at work and money at work, which is another way of saying active income and passive income, right?
Right.
And Nelson says one of the reasons that so many people are frustrated financially or have financial problems is they haven't learned to become an operator of their money so that their money is actively making them money, putting money to work. And that I highly recommend it to anybody. The detail, I won't go into the detail. I would love to try to go into the detail of what Chris explains in that book, but I won't, because if you want to if you want a really deep biblical explanation of how Jesus talked about the value of putting money to work for you and operating money as a money-making thing, I would highly recommend that book. But I've never found anything to me that's more powerful to be able to really step into that and take action than learning to become my own banker, because bankers are the best operators of money in the world, as far as I can tell.
No, I would agree with that. I think, once again, the infinite banking concept, why we embraced it so fully was, look, I think it's applicable and it's useful to whatever stage of life, whatever income level you're in. But for us in particular, we were in our early 40s. Once again, businesses were growing, income was outstripping expenses. And I wanted to be responsible with that blessing, but I also wanted to continue to be in growth mode just due to my entrepreneurial spirit and the stage of my career that I was in. And so, what better fit than infinite banking that I can, with a couple simple transactions, put that money into a life insurance policy where it's going to grow with compounding interest and the tax benefits that exist. But yet, I could still have access to that money to continue to make investments, um, you know, whether it be ag real estate or anything else that would continue. So look, what a bank does is it takes other people's money and it uses it multiple times to spur
Yes.
growth. And man, to have the opportunity to do that on a personal level myself has been just incredibly liberating.
Yeah, it's it's incredible to be able to learn to think the way that they think. And people don't think of money as like a piece of equipment or inventory that we can learn to operate, that we can become a proficient operator of
Right.
money. We think that way about horses, the way that somebody rides a horse. We think about it and by the way, that's what I wanted to say. I'll get back to that in a second. When Shane mentioned life insurance, for anybody that may have tuned into this podcast as the first one they're listening to, the reason we use life insurance for banking is because that's what the banks do. They own more life insurance than everybody else combined. And if you want to learn more about how to use life insurance for banking, we've got plenty of other episodes about that. So look to the rest of our podcast for that. We won't go into the details of that. But to get back to the operator, a tractor or a car, a really good driver, a set of golf clubs, Tiger Woods is, I love thinking about it in this way. Like, I could have the greatest set of golf clubs in the world, and Tiger Woods could be using a little set of kiddie clubs from Walmart, but he would still beat the crap out of me on a golf course because he's such a good operator of that tool. And man, I look at people like Warren Buffett. That guy is an operator of money.
Right.
That guy knows what money is. He knows how it works, and he knows how to operate it. And people like Robert Kiyosaki say, learn real estate, because real estate is debt and taxes. And if you don't understand debt and taxes, then you don't understand how to operate money. And I would say the exact same thing about infinite banking. If anybody is out there, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or an employee or a doctor or it doesn't matter who you are. Learning how the banking game, specifically the banking game, is played and how that part of the game interacts with taxes, estate planning, real estate, legal, and everything else. It's a crucial part of the game that Nelson saw that a lot of people overlook, but we really shouldn't, because it's as much of a key to the whole game as any other piece of the game that I've seen. This idea that money is like this, learning to look at money as this piece of equipment that I need to learn. Michael needs to learn how to take authority over his money. Michael needs to learn how to operate his money like a very valuable piece of equipment that can really honestly transform the economy and the culture surrounding us.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fairness to everyone that may be listening, look, I mean, we're not taught that in school, right? We're
Yeah.
not taught that by our parents, or most of us aren't.
Mm-hmm.
This is like one of those mysteries that, for whatever reason, is just kept from us, and so it does take some personal investment. I mean, that's my story. Look, I didn't grow up understanding how money worked. I didn't understand
Yeah.
that it was a tool that was to be used. I just thought, you got a paycheck, you paid your bills, and that's the way life worked. I mean,
Right. Me too.
this has been a personal journey of, just like you said, I have to take responsibility in this area of my life to educate myself, to learn more. And fortunately, I just had some really good mentors through different stages of my life that, it was just like when we went into business for ourselves for the first time. I had a mentor that said, you guys are really good about doing the work, but now it's time to learn how to run a business. And money's the same way, right? I mean, being able to balance a checkbook and write a bill is, that's 101, but there's deeper levels about how to take control of your money and put it to work for you rather than you working for your money. And so just a dramatic different change in mindset that takes some time and some investment. But once again, that investment is, I think, one of the greatest investments you can make.
Yeah.
It just unlocks that. Once again, no matter what your income level, just taking control and responsibility of that will dramatically change, your outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. That reminded me of something. We were playing golf one time, actually, and I learned something from you. You planted a seed that God cause to grow in my mind, and it's still growing. And I think it's related to something that Nate talks about in the six core principles of infinite banking. So go back to our podcast and look at the 6 core principles of infinite banking. And what he says is, if you start infinite banking without really fully looking at these 6 core principles, then it may not matter that much to you. Nelson would say, if you don't understand the problem, the solution won't really matter. But you said something on that golf course that I've wanted to come back to you in conversation. I'm really glad the Holy Spirit reminded me. And it's principle number 6, actually, that Nate talked about a lot. There's a book called Anti-Fragile. Okay. And basically being able to gain and thrive during bad times. And when the world is in chaos, we can actually thrive. And you said to me on the golf course, you're like, look, if you plan correctly, and if you manage your risk properly, and if you understand the game, you can actually and set yourself up to thrive during those times. That really caught my attention because I could tell you knew what you were talking about. You weren't just talking, like you were referring to something that you've implemented in your life. And it reminded me of Robert Kiyosaki talking about he talks about the same thing. He's like, man, I can't wait till the next stock market crash, because I'm going to talk about that. How did that principle come into your life? How does it work for you? And why does it matter?
Yeah. I mean, I just think that once again, everyone can grow and do things when things are good. But the real opportunities are when there's downturns in markets, there's downturns in economy. The thing is you just have to have a war chest. You have to have, you have to be disciplined in the good times. So what we've done, and what's been so beneficial to us in our own personal businesses that we are entrusted with, is we pay down debt and get ourselves really strong and stable in the good times. And then we lean into the market really hard and we expand in the bad times, because cash is king in those times. And people are looking, they run into problems where cash flow is an issue and things like that. And look, I don't wish any ill will on my neighbors, but when those, times come to fruition, then I want to be able to lean in and buy things at a rebate rather than at the peak of the market. And so the same thing has been true. Once again, it's another reason why we embraced infinite banking so much, is if I can have a store of cash that is working for me in the good times when things are overpriced and inflation is high and everything else, well, then I can access that store of cash to take advantage of opportunities in the downturns. And what a brilliant system.
Yeah. So I love that term, war chest. I'm going to put that in my journal. So the war chest is a storehouse of cash.
That's right. That's right.
And I just want to reiterate that because that's so powerful. And I would ask you, Shane, in your entire career, have you found a better tool for storing cash, for building your war chest, than these types of high cash value policies?
No, and you're talking to a guy that owns a lot of real estate, ag real estate. Look, I love real estate, right? It appreciates in value. I can use it. I'm in the cattle business, and so I can make an investment on a pasture. It's a good place to store money. It'll appreciate over time. I can use it. By putting cattle on, I can generate more income off of it. But even that pales in comparison to the infinite banking, to having a store of cash that's growing with the tax benefits over time in my policy. Because the problem with equity in real estate is I have to go to a lender, I have to use someone else, I have to take a loan to get that equity out. It's not real liquid, where in the policy, I can call someone up, I can say I need $100,000 out of my policy, and it's there within 48 hours, and I can take advantage of an opportunity. That's another thing that our mentor taught me so strongly is he said the difference between the people, the haves and the have-nots, are the haves have thought about the opportunity. what would I do if ABC happened and that
Ah,
opportunity presented itself?
yeah.
Because they've already thought about it, because they've already planned for it, they can act. What happens
Yes.
so often is an opportunity presents itself. You've got all your resources tied up in an illiquid place. By the time that you access that capital, that opportunity is already gone. And
Yeah.
infinite banking allows you to just streamline that, get access to your hard earned money. And it's just been wonderful for Morgan and I to be able to move when we need to move rather than miss out on the opportunity because it takes too long to access our resources.
Hmm. That's exactly right. And not only that, but capital attracts opportunities.
Absolutely.
That's another core principle of infinite banking. That's principle number 4. So not only are you able to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes, but you actually get more opportunities when you have that war chest.
Yeah, no doubt
They,
about
they,
it. It'll shock you, right? If you have a store of wealth somewhere that's easily accessible, I've found that you don't have to go and look for opportunities; they fall in your lap. I mean, that quickly becomes
yeah,
known. I don't know how that happens, um, but it definitely does. There'll be opportunities, and I think part of it is just you're more open to them. Your eyes are open
yeah,
because I have this stability and this storehouse of wealth that you're more aware of the opportunities around you, but I think other people become aware too that um, you know, man, you're someone that is in a different position than I am. Maybe you can teach me or help me with something. And those
yeah.
opportunities just evolve.
Yes. I see that routinely happen to people. So when you get started with living wealth, you're not just buying a life insurance policy and learning how to use it. You're joining a community of people, and you're going to keep up with the podcast and have consultation meetings and get with Paul and do the GPS. You're joining a community of people where you're going to notice opportunities that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. It's a whole lot more than just getting a policy.
Yeah.
And and some of that's up to the client too. Like, hey, keep up with the podcast. Keep reread Nelson's book. Keep yourself informed. Come to some of our live events and all that stuff, and you'll get these greater benefits. Shane, would you be willing to? What are some of the things that you've done with your policies since you got started? And what are some of the things that you've been able to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we've been able to do some rolling line of credit with some of our other entities. We've been able to take on the mortgages for some of our adult children and keep that
Mm-hmm.
money in the family. We've been able to buy, tracts of ag real estate that came up that I would have never been able to afford or have the down money for if I didn't have infinite banking. We've been able to, take vacations. I mean, look, the the possibilities are endless. I mean, just like you said about that community, part of the benefit of the community is you find out what other people are doing and it inspires you to, man, I never thought that I could do that. Or, it just opens your
Yeah.
eyes up to the possibilities. But we've done everything. Um, you know, Made down payments and recaptured those through our policies on land. We've been able to pay off higher interest rates debts, uh, that we needed to with cheaper interest rate loans from the life insurance company. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Take on car loans for other people, mortgages
Yep.
for other people. I mean, we truly are our own bank, and it's been wonderful not only for us but for family members and friends as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful. I just last week, I had a friend who he has a land flipping business, and he had a deal come up that was great. I looked at the whole specs of it, and I did it. I loaned him the money for it and we bought it. And without infinite banking, I wouldn't have even had the framework in my mind of how to assess an opportunity like that quickly, because that was one, and that it comes quick and it leaves quick,
Yeah. Michael,
but
I want to be really, really careful and clear about this that, look, Morgan and I have been able to do some really awesome things with some bigger purchases, but this applies to any level of income.
Yeah, it does.
You don't have to be a high wage earner to put this into practice. I mean,
Amen.
this should be done no matter what your income level is, because it's about that planning ahead for the future. I mean, you're going to make more money in the future, right? You're going to get raises at work. You're going to get inheritances. You're going to have these things. You're going to have these opportunities. I mean, I've got sons that started their first policies and started implementing this into their life at 19 years old.
Yeah.
And I just can't wait to see what that can happen. I mean, at 19, they're not making anywhere near the wage that I'm making at 45. But I wish they're going to be so much better off than I am, because if I would have been introduced to this concept at 19, what could I be doing now? So look, it doesn't matter if you're taking out a $50,000 policy or a $5,000 policy. You should do it. It works.
Yep. Agree. My first one was $400 a month.
Yeah.
And I used it to buy stuff. I mean, I used it to pay off some debt that I had, and I financed. I financed some a washer and dryer.
Yep.
When I was younger. You know, the knowledge is so valuable. It's about the knowledge, no matter what level you're doing it at. Like you said, it doesn't matter what the dollar amount is. The knowledge is what's valuable. And the money will come and the money will change, but the knowledge doesn't change. The principles don't change.
Yeah, I love the washer and dryer example. I mean, I think that's really appropriate and applicable. But I like one. I've got a son that bought an engagement ring with a policy loan. I mean, what better investment, right?
That's right. That's right. And recapture your money.
That's right. Exactly.
So good.
So look, he's going to be able to go back to his grandkids someday, and he's going to say, part of your inheritance was all the way back when I proposed to your grandmother. We used a policy loan out of this policy that you're now inheriting to get this, snowball rolling downhill.
That's right. That's right. I forgot to say too, on the capital attracts opportunities. The way that Ray said that, Mike, he came to me one day and he's like, Michael, as you get more money, you will not believe the plans that other people have for your money.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's so funny how
Very
that works.
true.
So, hey, Shane, again, I know it's a really busy time for you. I can't, it's been the journey with you has been awesome, by the way, everything that the Lord has done in our relationship and everything that's happened. So thanks for making the time. Really appreciate it. This is a great conversation, and definitely hope to have you back on the podcast again in the future. And do you have any closing remarks about what in 10 seconds, why is infinite banking important? Why should people care?
Yeah, I just think that it's about taking back control of a resource that you were entrusted with from the beginning.
Yeah.
Excited about the future, Michael. I would agree. Our relationship has been wonderful. I'm looking forward to the years ahead. It's an honor to be on this podcast, and have me back anytime. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome. We'll do it. Well, guys, this has been Michael Duryea and Shane Tiffany on the Living Wealth Dollars and Nonsense podcast. And just remember, as always, if you follow the herd,
you will get slaughtered.
That's right.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Shane. Take care. Tune in next week, everybody. Bye-bye.